Hi, everyone. Welcome. Reminder this afternoon for audio, you must connect your computer's audio or phone in using the phone number provided in the reg email from SDE GoToWebinar. All attendees are placed on mute for this webinar. We will do a question period where you can ask questions with the raise hand feature, but at the moment, everybody's on mute. And keep in mind, we are recording this session. Welcome. We hope that everyone is well. We miss seeing everyone like we do usually every year, but thanks for taking the time to come today. Welcome to this webinar about the district administrator, for district administrators for Smarter Balanced, NGSS, CTAA, and CTAS. We normally hand out materials at this time. However, they will be shipped this year and will be available online shortly. Please note that we are doing things, actually, we have been doing things a little bit differently this year. In addition to this DA workshop, we hosted special populations workshops this morning at 10 and yesterday at 9, and we will be posting recordings of that. This workshop is really just for policies and procedures around testing. There will be two opportunities to ask questions during the meeting. You can use the raise hand feature and you can ask your question via audio. We will also take your questions using the text box, or the question box, excuse me, and we'll broker those throughout the session. I am very sorry, but we have no quiz for you today as we traditionally have for these DA workshops. It's all business today, 90 minutes of fun. So as Yoda would say, always pass on what you have learned, and we will try to do that in this very concentrated session. Okay, so my name is Abe Christ. I'm a bureau chief in the performance office. I'm joined today by some of my awesome colleagues from the performance office, Deirdre Ducharme, as well as Janet Stuck, who work on special POPs and accommodations, and Jeff Gregg, who works also in the office on NGSS and CTAS. Also on the call are Christy Alberino, who works on Smarter Balanced and interims, as well as all our appeals. We're also joined by Michelle Rosado, who is our PM for the Connecticut SAT School Day. And thanks to Michelle for making the webinar happen here behind the scenes. And finally, Marlene Shamroy is on the call too. Marlene is the glue in the office that holds everybody together for answering calls and taking just about anything that comes in from our districts. We are nested in the performance office. Here are some of our other colleagues. We all report to Ajit Gopalakrishnan, our Chief Performance Officer. You'll notice that some staff members have transitioned out if you compare this year's versus last year. So if you are looking to connect with anybody about any of the projects we work on in our office, please take a look at this because things might have changed just slightly. Okay, here's a contact info slide, pretty straightforward. If you've been in the mix in years past, it's really the same thing. The purpose in which you would need to contact people, who you would contact, the phone number, and then email. Keep in mind this year, due to the fact that some folks in the office are working remotely, email is probably the best way to go. We have our phones forwarded in most cases, so you can use that if you prefer talking to someone, but email is probably the best option these days. You can also use this general email inbox, the CT student assessment at ct.gov, if you want to just send it to a general place. We do monitor that one as well. Okay, and then from our awesome partners down at CAI, formerly AIR, we're joined today by Jen Cho, Amber Benlian, and Marie Musumeci. And here is their contact info, their help desk and email, as well as their phone number. This is not new. You should have this from years past. I know that's been stored in my phone for many years. Okay, so here's a presentation overview. We are going to move quickly today. So some of these things we'll spend a little time on, some we'll dive in a little bit deeper. In general, we have an overview planned. So we're spending a little more time on some of the sections than others. Then we're going to talk about the remote proctoring system, and then we're going to turn it over to Cambium, who's going to talk a little bit about the systems overview. Okay, so first off, we wanted to touch on the sort of big picture before we go into the details of the assessments. And when it comes to that, we wanted to give you really an update on the status of assessment as it is today. First off, the most important thing before we even go down the road of assessment is the health and safety of your students, your staff members, and your community when it comes to considering administering state assessments. Keep that in mind. However, with that said, nothing has changed since our mid-October memo, where at the time we stated that we were committed, CSD, to administering assessments to the fullest extent possible. There may be special cases, for example, for remote learners, for CTA and CTOS where it is too difficult, but otherwise CSDE is expecting universal participation. Having results in 2021 will allow the state and districts to track long-term trends. It will also allow our policymakers, CSDE and at the district level, to evaluate the full impact of the pandemic and also target support and resources when it's necessary. We will be seeking guidance from districts in the coming months. In fact, I know it's already been happening. Conversations with our district partners in terms of how reporting might look mildly different, just because of the nature of things. I know that our Chief Performance Officer, Ajit Gopalakrishnan, has already communicated with some superintendents about what might be coming in different for next year, or for this reporting cycle. And then finally, having a measure in 2021 will also allow CSDE to restart our growth measure for the 21-22 school year. Okay. In addition to assessment, we also wanted to touch on accountability. The state assessments do not have to be synonymous necessarily with school and district accountability. And because of that, CSDE is currently seeking a waiver to waive school and district accountability. In a nutshell, what we're asking the feds is to waive the summative rating, so essentially the accountability index, sorting schools in the 1 through 5 sorting, as well as identifying turnaround and focus schools. Our addendum is currently posted online, so if you go on our main page to our CSDE page, you go to performance and accountability, you can see the addendum. And actually today is the last day for public comment. We welcome public comment. If you have any big picture, broad comments on what's going on or specific comments, we encourage you to send things in to that inbox. And then of course, what about changes at the federal level? As you know, this has been a historic week in terms of changes at the president level. And we are also, Commissioner Cardona, congratulations, Commissioner Cardona, will also be appointed as Ed Secretary in the near future. These changes could conceivably have an impact on how we conduct our business in the future. So we are monitoring those closely. As soon as we know things that are different than the current messaging, we will let you know. Okay, so a little bit more about accountability too and the status. This question has come up every session. There's a concern about participation. And I'm just gonna read that first dot point here, because at this point, this is our position. To ensure that we get the most complete measure of student performance, CSDE expects universal participation of students when the state assessments can be delivered. However, with that said, as I mentioned earlier, if the waiver is approved for accountability for 2021, we will not be categorizing schools. And the primary use of our participation data is in that school classification. So assuming federal approval of the waiver, participation rates won't have an impact on schools in 2021. In other words, this is somewhat of a pressure release valve. If you have special circumstances where testing cannot occur, districts will not be penalized. We recognize this is an unprecedented year. There's situations where students are in remote settings or school settings where, for reasons you all know just as well as we do, students can't be tested. You will not be penalized, assuming the federal approval. Okay, so we do a what remains the same slide every year, just to kind of remind you that if you've been in this game for a while, relax. You know a lot more than you think you do, because there are a lot of things that haven't changed. First off, Tide is back. Same thing as always. There are some minor changes. Jen and Amber will touch on those in a few minutes, but Tide's back. We have our manuals for test coordinators and TAMs for NGSS, CTAA, and CTOS. As I mentioned to you, you do not have them now. They're going to be posted and sent out hard copy pretty soon. Who needs to be tested? Again, nothing's changed. Students in private approved facilities, students who are in out-of-state facilities or in non-state approved facilities who are in PSIS, and then students with disabilities and or English learners. And then also full-time remote learners. Remember the pressure release though. Keep that in mind, because I know when you see that, and we also have an option for the remote proctoring that we will be talking about. Office hours are back. We'll touch on that in 1 second. The importance of maintaining data in PSIS Reg, and also the ordering of paper materials as in Tide for Braille and large print. That's going to open on January 22nd. Okay, so what's new in 2021? As I mentioned earlier, we had our focus training for special populations this morning and yesterday. If you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I missed that, or you couldn't make it, rest easy. We will be posting that. The PowerPoint is already up on our main student assessment page. I know Deirdre and Janet are taking questions, probably getting an email a minute these days when it comes to this stuff. So if you have questions, you can certainly email them. But that training was done. It's a little bit different this year because we're not bundling it with this training. Our TCM and TAMs are really for in-person testing. That will be clear when you get them. The third dot point, scheduling test sessions in advance. This is a biggie. To help ensure testing runs smoothly on the day of testing, teachers can now schedule summative testing well in advance. When a teacher does that, the online system will give you a session ID and a link to join the session, and you can spread the word well before, say, the morning of the test. You could do it the night before, the day before, several days before. There will be remote testing manuals coming. Stay tuned for that. We'll have a little bit more information in this slide deck. And then a couple major shifts for students who might need the embedded speech to text accommodation or the math translation glossary. If you have students who need these, I advise you to get information from our special populations presentation. But in a nutshell, the speech to text accommodation will now allow students to, without the use of a third-party software, the students will be able to dictate responses to constructed items right into the test delivery system. Secure browser, yep, it's same. It's not new that we have this on our slide every year, but the secure browser itself is new. You need a new secure browser for anybody who's testing. And then finally, results released for assessments. As you know, for Smarter and CTAA, we've released in years past in June. And then for Science, CTOS, we released in the summer of 2019. Given the fact that things are a little bit different this year, we might be doing, we are doing remote testing. We might have to do some studies and analysis of that. We haven't released a hard date yet in terms of release. We know the sooner is better. We know that the results are better in your hands than ours at this point, or when it comes summertime. So we will do our best to get that information to you. Okay, I'm going to move through some of these slides pretty quickly because they're pretty straightforward. Here are our office hours. If you have questions about ALT assessments or accessibility and accommodation, February 16th, March 15th, 2 webinars, don't miss them, or at least you should hit one of them. And then beginning on April 1st, we will be doing our usual Thursday 3 p.m. office hours, with the one to note in particular on April 8th, which will cover the remote proctoring tool. Okay, calendar, nothing's changed about this one. The big dates are May 18th, the new makeup date for SAT, and then finally the remote proctoring window, I don't think we've mentioned this date in the slide deck yet, is opening on April 19th. So that's a biggie at the bottom there. Okay, so Tide PSIS data sync. Again, this is another thing where if you've been in the game in years past, not much has changed here. So we're going to go through some of these quickly to remind you about not only the importance, but the fact that these things are back again, and you should be working with your PSIS folks to sync up what's in Tide. So DAs, you should be connecting with your PSIS coordinators to ensure student information is accurately placed in PSIS Reg, and which will result in accurate data in Tide. We do a nightly upload. We push that information up to Tide, and assuming it's correct in Reg, it'll be there correct the next day in Tide. In November of 2020, we actually pushed all the testing demographics listed in the first bullet here to from free 0 into Tide, so though that's already been populated. We did not set any values for recently arrived and Section 504, so those do need to be set in PSIS Reg, and then they can be moved over to Tide. And then there's an important date, June 4th, all fields are locked in PSIS Reg and pushed to Tide. That's an important date. You want to make sure that at that time, the students at the time of testing is locked in. Student status at the time of testing is locked in. Couple sort of outlier examples that always come up. Students who are repeaters should be tested again. So if a student repeats a grade, they go from grade 4 to grade 4, they're tested with the grade 4 test because that's what they're identified as in PSIS. And then for grade 11 students who are skippers, they're actually never grade 11 students, but students who, for credit reasons, go from 10 to 12, and they skip the grade 11. We are not, in years past, we used to clean up in terms of administration of tests to those students. Now is the second or third year where we are not pursuing those students skipping grade 11. Okay, this is a slide, really a resource. I'm not going to spend any time on it. It's just touching on what happens, how you adjust a student in PSIS Reg if their status changes. I would work with my PSIS person to touch on this so they can help you change any statuses when a student's status changes for special ed, EL, or lunch status. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Janet for the next couple slides. Janet, there you are.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. So I'm going to give you a little brief overview again about our designated supports and accommodations in Tide. These are related to SmarterBalance and NGSS. Deidre and I did conduct the special populations webinar today and yesterday, which will be posted, and you can refer to that as well. So we want to make sure that you are collaborating with your staff in terms of the special ed and EL status, because those accommodations and designated supports need to be entered into Tide to ensure that the tools are activated for the student at the time of testing. We have an accessibility chart and the assessment guidelines, which includes a great detail about how to understand and administer these accommodations. Within the portal are many, many resources about how to indicate these in TIDE. There's a drop down which has the assessment guidelines in addition to brochures and quick guides. We encourage you to have your student use the practice tests to ensure that they understand the functioning of the supports and accommodations and the location within the platform and are familiar with them prior to testing. One note, as he mentioned, one of the things that's new this year is the speech to text application. This is new. When you're using the practice test, the student will need to sign in with their actual SACID rather than as a guest user for the practice test to try that function. We also have an opportunity for you to request special documented accommodations, which are due today. But again, we recognize that PPTs happen all year long. So if you have a student who has a need above and beyond the designated supports and accommodations indicated in the assessment guidelines, you can contact either Deidre or myself via email, and we'll set up a conference call to discuss your needs and can provide that support for your student. It is a process. We share information over a secure FTP site. So again, we want to make sure that you're not sharing any confidential information via email. Don't include students' names. We can refer to the SACID to ensure we know who that student is. Next slide, please. We have a process for our alternate assessment students to ensure that those students are provided the correct test at the time of testing. It is an activation of the alternate flag indicator. Once that is flipped, the student has access to the alternate assessments. It is dependent upon the trained educator to submit the alternate assessment eligibility form by February 15th. If for some reason that form is not submitted by February 15th, it's incumbent upon the trained teacher or the district administrator to contact the Connecticut Help Desk to request activation of the alt flag to ensure the student has access to that test. Next slide, please. Next slide. So again, these have been shared with you through several methods of our communication. These are the deadlines for the submission of the alternate assessment eligibility form, and we have new resources related to that form on our website, which may help guide you and your teachers at the PPT to complete that form. These are due by January 15th for students in grade 11, particularly related to those duly identified students who will be participating in the Last Links assessment. As a reminder, these students who have significant cognitive disabilities, who do not have the skills to access the standard assessment for the Last Links, there's a process to share that information with the state, and those students do not participate, but it's dependent upon the qualifications for the alternate assessment. And then between November 12th and February 15th, we would expect the bulk of your students in grades 3 through 8 and 11, any newly identified grade 11 students, to have the form submitted as well. Next slide. Abe's going to cover test security with you.
Thanks, Janet. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know Janet and Dee are extremely busy with many questions coming in, so please be patient. They also work on other projects like LOS and SAT School Day, so they're busy. So if you need them, please email or call, and please be patient. So test security. Nothing here really is new. So if you have been in the mix the last few years, this should not come as new news. Here is a list of our common breaches. If you are new this year, we encourage you to check the test coordinator manual, which has some great resources in terms of explaining the different types of test security situations. It also has a great list in Appendix G that outlines each particular or some type of the most familiar or common test security issues to kind of put some meat on the bones exactly what they are. The biggest news here is that obviously test security is going to be a little bit different this year due to the fact we are going to be doing remote testing. So if you have questions regarding remote testing, more guidance is coming. Sit tight for now, and we will be providing more guidance. Again, we have that April 8th workshop. We have resources coming. Okay, this is the slide with the most words on it. We don't expect you to read it. It's a bad slide, we know that. However, we put this out here, this is verbatim from our test coordinators manual in terms of what is test security and what are the responsibilities for proctoring. We put this in just because we know that if you're pushing this training down to your team members in your district, this is good to kind of define what test security means and the importance of student assessment at the state level. This is the TA security confirmation page. Again, this is back again this year. We started doing this in 2019, and we wanted to flag this for you, just so you can inform your colleagues at the district level that when they log in to administer a test, they will be asked this every time they log in, that they have read the proper manuals for administering those tests. And so we had rolled this out in 2019 to kind of emphasize the need for security and training and so forth down at the TA level. They will be seeing this again. Okay, state policy on participation. So I touched on this earlier in terms of our belief in this, or our stance on this, that in order to ensure that we get the most complete measure of performance, we're expecting universal participation for students when assessments can be delivered safely. This is like the previous slide with the many, many words on it. This is just intended to, if you need to communicate down to your district level, the state level documentation of CGS 10-14 that articulates the state law. Nothing has changed, the state law is still there. Keep in mind the pressure release valve that I mentioned. Assuming we get a waiver, our waiver approved, the school classification will go away, which is where participation is fed into, so you will not be penalized. Okay, so improprieties, irregularities, and breaches. Again, not much has changed here. We have our definition of each particular one, and I'm not going to walk through each of these. If you are new coordinators, keep in mind that there are pages and pages of information in the test coordinator manual that explains these. Here are the actions when you have a breach, an irregularity, or an impropriety at the district level, what you should be doing. Keep in mind, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a chart, a gray chart, Appendix G, that kind of, when you're asking yourself, well, give me some specifics on what each of these look like, we give you the specifics in that appendix. So there are situations, it doesn't capture every single imaginable situation, but most situations that would be in a school are there. If you ever have questions, again, for a breach situation, you're to notify us immediately, either through the number or that email there. But if you ever have questions, also just reach out to us and we can help you in security situations. Here's a graphic about them. Here are all the appeals that can be used through the TIDE system. Any situation that is out there, just about any, can be remedied by an appeal. So when something doesn't work right, testing day goes south, there is a way to get the test session back. The appeals the most popular ones are the second, third, and fourth, really, grace period extensions and the reopens. Some of these you might not even be using, like, so for instance, restore and invalidate, likely not reset often either, but reopening a test you will be doing. So there's the description as well as the appeal type. Again, these have not changed since last year, or excuse me, 2019. Tips on entering appeals. So please enter them carefully, judiciously. We do read every single one that comes in. You might submit 100 appeals one day, and I promise you we will read every one. We treat them seriously. When they come in, there's a text box that you can fill in information about the appeal. Please provide as much information as you can on that. That'll help us broker the appeal, and make sure that whoever is entering them is trained. In terms of reopen or grace period extensions, make sure that these are given to students who genuinely need them. In years past, we've seen districts, well, schools, grades, test administrators open up testing with the thinking that more time is equated to better results, and hours and hours of testing is not the remedy for that. So please make sure that we will gladly reopen and grace period extension any student who genuinely needs it, but just use that carefully. And then when you don't know what to do, reach out to us, we'll help you. Okay, this is the process if a student is not given the correct assessment. I'll let this slide speak for itself. I won't go through every dot point, but in situations where you have a problem, not the right assessment, wrong accommodation, that type of thing, this is what we're asking districts to do. It speaks for itself. Okay, so shifting to the last topic in this initial deck, we're going to touch on remote proctoring. So if you all remember when we started online testing in 13-14, there was this shift from paper pencil to online testing. And although we don't believe it's as widespread as that, we think that there will be some remote testing necessary going forward. Certainly not in the numbers that are potentially upcoming this year, but it's possible in the future they're going to be students learning virtually. So we are providing this opportunity as we feel it's incumbent on us at CSDE to provide an opportunity to test as remote learners, as well as to plan for the future. Again, this isn't 13-14 where the whole state is going online, but it is, we do see this as potentially not only this year, but in the future, a small number of students at a minimum testing remotely. So what is remote proctoring? What is remote testing? Basically testing in a home environment where the administrator is not physically present. CAI, Cambium, has developed a super remote proctoring tool that we're using, that we have paired with our standard test delivery system, so tests can be administered online. And many districts have, not many, there's a handful of districts that have been piloting it up to this point, using the interims and for Smarter Balanced and NGSS. Actually, and I don't know that I made that clear, this tool is going to only be available for Smarter and NGSS. So when does it open? On April 19th. As a reminder, we're conducting our office hours on the 8th for training. More resources are coming. We've done this presentation. This is our third day doing this presentation. We've received 1 million questions about these. We know answers to many of them. Some of them we're still working through. Rest easy, there's more guidance coming. Okay, about the hierarchy. So this is getting a lot of press time in terms of exposure here, this idea of remote proctoring. However, we still believe that the majority of testing is going to occur in school. So in-person or hybrid students should be tested in person. Then second here, fully remote students who can be tested in an alternate district location or in a school can come in and test. And then really remote proctoring is only for students who are fully remote and cannot possibly test in person or in a district secure location. So we're not at all recommending this as an option for all students. This is only for students who cannot make it in for in-person testing. There's a graphic depicting essentially what we just talked about. In general, remote testing, you should be waiting on doing that. The window opens at the end of March. A remote testing window does not open until April 19th, as I mentioned. Okay, so but what about CTOS and CTAA? It's a good question. There is no remote proctoring tool for those tests, just due to the complexity of those tests. And because of that, we are recommending that CTOS and CTAA be administered in a school environment, not at home. You would load the CTOS results into the DEI from the March 29th to June 4th dates, just like you would every year. And if you do have a student who's a fully remote student, it still would be possible to administer the test to them, only if a trained TEA is available and administer the test in a one-on-one situation. But again, I'm going to go back to dot point 2 here, where we're recommending that this assessment be administered in a school environment. These assessments, rather. Okay, so some of you might be wondering, well, when can I see this remote proctoring tool? Districts should be able to have access, all districts, not just the pilot districts, sometime in February for the NGSS and Smarter interim assessments. In the next few weeks, there will be more resources allocated for these assessments. Okay. So we've hit the point in the webinar where we are going to take questions for a few minutes. There's two methods we can do this that we've been doing. You can either raise your hand and ask the question via audio, or you can ask the question through the question box. I see some of my colleagues have already been answering them through the question box here. So are there any folks, Michelle, you've been brokering them, anybody who has their hand raised that would like to ask a question?
Not yet.
Okay. I do see one question has rolled in. So will there be no growth scores this year because there was no testing last year? Yeah, as I think it was the 5th or 6th slide, that last dot point. One of the reasons we're hoping for testing this year, or we are testing this year, is we will be able to restart the growth measure because we didn't have any scores last year. Okay, so I'll give it a 20-second wait time. Anybody wants to raise their hand or question in questions? Okay, so first question, let me read these first here. Okay, so first question that's come in, I guess I asked and I got them. So does the new tool permit students to remotely to take the test on a secure browser and still communicate? It appears that it does, but we want to double check. Yes, so we are going to be asking that students use a secure browser. This is this tension between secure testing, wanting secure testing, but also allowing some flexibility. We've fallen on the idea that if we're going remote, we're going to be using a secure browser. So when you use the secure browser and the remote proctoring tool, there is a mechanism embedded in that system where you can video chat with students independently, message them independently, and communicate with them independently, like in real time. Okay, next question. You mentioned something about all districts having access to the remote proctoring tool in February. Are we able to give IABs to students who are remote now? Absolutely. It was possible to administer remote tests for interims since the beginning of the year. The catch is that unless you're a pilot district, you don't have access to the remote proctoring tool. But yes, there's guidance out there on our webpage. Maybe I can actually go and drop it in the question in a minute.
April Sunday, I'll pull it up from the portal, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Dee. So Dee's going to drop that manual that gives you some information on how to administer IEBs to students now remotely. Okay, will we receive a reminder about the April 8th training? Absolutely. This is the first time I think we've mentioned it, so we not only owe you a reminder, but a notification. So that will be out there probably in the student assessment news, but we just wanted to promote this date now because it's coming soon. Okay, so how should we test students at home if they have a device that does not have the secure browser? So as I mentioned earlier, we are requiring the secure browser on the device. We are, you know, if you have a particular situation where a student does not have a secure browser on the device, then there might be, you might have to think about options to bring that student in. You know, in extreme cases where it simply doesn't work, that's why we have promoted the statement how we are standing by universal participation this year. But in a case where it simply is not possible, that's why we are not penalizing districts this year for participation if it becomes simply impossible. So I'm going to take one more question and then I'm going to turn it back over to Cambion that just came in. Families of students who are remote are concerned about their children being in the school building. Will students be required to come in person to test? So very good question. Our recommendation is that students who are remote learners are brought into school to test. It's a recommendation. The most important thing, going back to slide 5 or 6 or whichever slide that was, we mean that where the most important thing in all this is the health and safety of your students, staff, and community. So if the safety of the student is the most important thing and they are reluctant to come in, despite our recommendation, then that's what it is. And in that case, that's why we've made the remote proctoring tool available. Again, in extreme cases, that's why we're pursuing the waiver. And I guess there's a follow-up. Is the remote option only for students with documented health concerns? No, not. If I'm a remote student and I don't have a documented health concern, I'm a remote student who might, for whatever reason, cannot make it into the school, then that student, again, it's our recommendation, but by no means are we requiring that. Health is the primary goal. Okay, I'm going to turn things over to Amber, who's going to start us off with some Cambium system updates. So I appreciate the questions too. If you do have questions, feel free to continue using the question box. We'll try to get them answered, and there also will be an opportunity at the end if you want to raise your hand and use that feature too. Amber?
Hi, thank you. My name is Amber Benlian, and I am a program manager here at CAI. My colleague Jen Cho and I will be covering some system updates. And I just want to make note that we're going to be going over some different features briefly, just to highlight some different things. So we really won't be going into much detail on how these different features work per se. However, if you do want additional information, always reach out to our help desk or go on to the Connecticut portal. We have lots of user manuals under the resources tab. So feel free to use that. Next slide. Next slide, please. The first thing I'll touch upon is the portal. All CAI systems and resource materials can be accessed on the portal. Just back one slide. Gabe, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Amber.
Gabe, can you hear? Okay, great. Sorry, so touching upon the portal, just a quick update. A lot of you are very familiar with the portal website. It is undergoing a redesign, and then new redesign will be released in June of 2021 this year. And just to let you all know, the URL link will remain the same. Next slide, please. Secure browser updates. I know we cover this each year. Abe touched upon it a little earlier. Just wanted to mention the secure browser is designed to ensure test security by prohibiting the students from accessing other programs or websites during testing. The 2020-2021 secure browser was released on August 14th of last year. So you can go onto the portal to download the latest secure browser. And just, I wanted to note that the browser from 2019-2020 will no longer work. Students will be required to use the secure browser to take summative tests, regardless if they're taking the test in class or remote. Next slide. An iOS update. This is specific to remote administration. The video conferencing will now be supported on the mobile secure browser app for iPads running on iOS 14.3 and up. So if you're planning to use video conferencing on iPads, please be sure to update to your latest operating system, as well as to update to the latest version of the mobile secure browser app. And if you're not planning on using iPads for video conferencing for remote administration, there's no action required. I do want to add, it's not mentioned on the slide, but although the secure browser app is ready to go, here at CAI, we do need to push a code update, and that will be happening in the next couple of weeks. Next slide. Chrome updates. CAI currently supports Chrome versions 83 to 86, and we provide presumptive support for new versions of Chrome as they are released, which means students are not prevented from taking tests on the newest version. However, CAI does need to perform internal testing to make sure that there are no issues. So our recommendation is to lock down your devices before the test administration window begins, and this reduces the risk of any issues occurring during testing should a new version be released. CAI also no longer supports devices that Google stopped supporting, so you can always monitor the end-of-life policy at the link below. You can always go into a web browser and just Google search it. Next slide, please. Accessing CAI systems, all user accounts were rolled over and passwords were reset on August 27th of last year. So if you log in on a new device or browser, or you end up clearing your cache on a previously used browser, you'll need to enter an emailed code after passing the initial login screen. And this step does not occur when you activate your account. The screenshot below shows that a user logged into Tide. What's neat about this is that once you've logged in once, you can toggle in the upper left-hand corner to different CAI systems that you have access to. So you don't need to go through the login screen. So if you went to test administration, that site would automatically pop up. Next slide. Tide, Test Information Distribution Engine. Many of you are very familiar with it. Tide supports the state, district, and school test coordinators throughout the testing process, from test preparation to test administration to post-administration. And below lists a lot of different features that many of you are familiar with. And we're going to just touch on some participation reports in the next few slides. Next slide. Tide updates. All students taking a summative assessment, whether it's Smarter Balanced, NGSS, CTAA, and CTOS, they will need to be in Tide. And all users who are proctoring a summative assessment or needs to access the DEI needs to have an account. Starting in fall of 2019, we mentioned this last year, CAI is no longer offering the Julie Voice Pack. So students testing on Windows platforms can use the voice pack that's built into it or other voice packs, but should not use a Julie Voice Pack unless your district has purchased the license directly from NeoSpeech. Next slide, please. TIDE participation reports. We're going to just briefly go through these four, and I just want to mention there is the TIDE user guide on the Connecticut portal. So if you want additional detailed information, feel free to access that, or again, always feel free to reach out to our help desk with questions. Next slide. The first one is plan and manage testing. This one and all of the other ones are accessed under monitoring test progress. And you'll see a screenshot here. What's nice about this report is that you can get down to a very detailed, granular report, and you can tailor it to what you're looking for. So if you see at the very bottom of the screenshot where it says get specific, that's where you would narrow down your search to exactly what you want to find out. So for example, if you wanted to know how many students started their test within the past 5 days, you can enter in that criteria to drill down to exactly that information. Next slide, please. Test status code report. Here's a screenshot of where to find it in TIDE. Again, it's under monitoring test progress. Next slide. And the test status code report, it's a specific report used to view each student's test status and all special codes to explain a student's non-participation in a test. So it will display all test statuses for each test for which each student in a district or school is eligible. And it can be generated at the district or the school level, depending on your user role. And you should generate the reports for each test to obtain an accurate picture reflecting the testing status of those students for all tests in the school or district. And this can be particularly useful for summative assessments. Next slide. The next one is test completion rates. It's a high-level report used to summarize the number and percentage of students who have started or completed the test. Again, it can be generated at the school or district level, depending on your user role. All students in the specified school or district will be included in that report. And as mentioned in the other slide, it should be generated for each test to obtain an accurate picture. Next slide. Test session status report. Again, this is another screenshot showing you where you can find this type of report. And then the other screenshot here also shows exactly what that type of report would look like. And next slide, please. In this type of report, it supports a session level report that you can run for districts or schools. It's a dashboard type of report, and it will include the cumulative counts of the number of tests that were started, paused, and completed in a session. And this information is updated every couple of minutes. And next slide, please. And this is where I am going to pause and hand it over to Jen Cho to pick up. Thank you.
Thanks, Amber. Make sure I have my mute button off. I'm going to go over some of the updates we've made to the student and test administrator interface. So we're going to start with the student interface and just update you on some tools we've added for this year. So one of the first things we've added that Abe and Janet mentioned earlier was our embedded speech to text tool. In the past, if you needed speech to text, students would either have to use a third-party software like Dragon. It wasn't offered on all platforms, so if you were using a Chromebook, you couldn't use speech to text because Chromebooks did not support that tool. Starting this year, CAI has built an embedded tool that can be used across all platforms that we support. and it will function the same way across all platforms. So it is an embedded tool that we will offer. It must be set and tied, and it's cross-platform compatibility. So it can be used on any device that your school or district is offering. It will only, though, appear on items that are open-ended. So you'll see this tool on either the ELA CAT tests or the math performance tasks. Next slide. I'll show a picture of how it works, but there will be a microphone on the bottom right-hand corner. A student will just select it, and then they'll be able to speak. And once they speak, the text will be transcribed into the response area, and the student can talk up to 5 minutes before the tool will close, but they can just tap on the microphone icon again, and it will continue to dictate what they want to say. Next slide. So this is what it would look like on an open-ended item. This tool currently is available on all interim and practice test assessments. We highly encourage that if your student is going to use this tool for the summative assessment, that they try it out, practice it, make sure they're comfortable with the tool beforehand. So have the students use it during the interim assessment or try it out on the practice test to make sure they are comfortable with the tool. In addition, on the practice test, you must log in as the student, or the student must log in as themselves. You can't use this tool as in guest mode. Next slide. The other additional updates we've made to the student interface is we've enhanced the line reader. So now it's really considered a line reader and masking hybrid. And below is a picture of what you'll see. It used to be that when a student used a line reader, which is a universal tool, it would only highlight the line that the student selected. Now with this new enhancement, you'll see that we've masked everywhere else on the page so that the student can only see what they're trying to read, so that everything else is not a distraction to the student. Next slide. And you'll see here there are a couple images. The first image is what it looked like in previous years. And the 3 images below is what it's going to look like now in also the different color contrast modes. So if you're taking an interim assessment or a practice test, you'll definitely see this functionality, and it will be also available on the summative assessments. Next slide. We've made a lot of updates to the TA interface, mainly to support remote administration. However, you can use a lot of the enhancements we made for in-class administration as well. So we want to go through these enhancements so that you're familiar with them before the day of testing. The first thing we're offering, and this is actually built in for every test session, is a session screensaver. So if a teacher wants to walk around a classroom, he or she can enable the session screensaver, and this picture that you see at the bottom with the test ID, that will cover the entire screen of their device. And so this allows them to be able to walk around freely and make sure that people aren't looking at their workstation, because there is PII information that we do want to remain confidential. In addition, if the test administrator did not invoke the screensaver, after a period of inactivity, the screensaver will automatically come on. Next slide. If you've recently logged in to the TA interface, actually starting in August, you'll see what is known as a session dashboard, and this is going to be new for this year. In the past, when you logged into the interface, you were immediately taken to the test administrator tree with all the different assessments. On this year, we do have a dashboard because we do have a new feature called upcoming sessions, where teachers are able to schedule sessions in advance. So this dashboard allows teachers to be able to tab between what are active or live sessions going on and what upcoming sessions they have in the future. Next slide. If you've started a test session, you'll notice that the look and feel has changed slightly. This is to incorporate some features that we have, but we do want to make everyone aware that even though the look and feel is slightly different, all the functionality remains the same. It was just to be able to support some additional enhancements. Next slide. And one of those enhancements is we are now able to show you what tests you have selected to administer. So in the past, if you were to select 5 different tests, you almost had to scroll down through the whole tree and look at what test had a check mark. Now, if you've selected a test, we will let you know on the right-hand side the test you have decided to proctor during this test administration. Next slide. In addition, we've added some filter features. So you can filter tests by grade, by subject area, by performance tasks, by IABs. This allows, this is especially important for those instruments assessments like the interims where there are so many assessments that are being offered. This just allows a teacher to be able to filter out the tests that they're not administering and just choose the ones that they do want to administer in the future. In addition, if you look at the right-hand corner, you'll see a magnification glass. That is going to be a text-based search feature. So if you know that there's a test called Turtles, you can certainly type in Turtles, and it will bring up the test that you're looking for. Next slide. So one of the new features that is pretty important for the remote administration, but also important for in-class administration is being able to schedule a test session in advance. In previous years, we've always said that the session should be started 20 minutes before the testing activity needs to take place. But we know that teachers are really busy this year. There's a lot of things that they have to juggle, and probably starting a test session isn't one thing that they want to worry about. So we are now allowing teachers to be able to schedule the test session in advance. So if a teacher knows that they're going to administer the math IABs next Wednesday, they can certainly set that test session up in advance. They get the session ID, communicate that out to the students, and not have to worry about it until the day of testing. It's already all set up in advance, and they're set. Next slide. And in order to do that, the test administrator interface will ask a couple questions. They'll ask the TA to put in the date of when they want to have this session take place. And they'll ask the teacher what test they want to administer in this test session. Should things change, a test administrator can delete the session, also edit it to add more tests or change the date as well. Next session. So once a test session is scheduled in advance, a teacher will receive this pop-up that you'll see in the first image. And this provides the test ID or the session ID as well as a link. So if you're administering an interim assessment without the secure browser, you can certainly send this link to the students. It will allow them to be able to directly access the student interface with the test session ID pre-populated. If you're going to administer a test remotely, you'll be able to then give the students the test session ID well in advance of the test so they can have it written down and ready to go on the day of testing. Okay, so I just wanted to go over a little bit about the remote testing. As Abe said, we're going to have more information provided in the next couple of weeks, as well as a training on April 8th. But we do want to let you know that it's going to be the same platform as the current testing platform. So there's nothing new that you have to install or no new system that you have to log into. There's no additional software to purchase or to install. It will work with the secure browser without needing the permissive mode. We've already built that all in-house. There's nothing additional that you have to do in terms of setup. The remote tool will allow broadcasting and video conferencing, so teachers and students can chat with each other either through one-on-one through a call, through a text chat, as well as being able to look at each other through the video. Students will not be able to see each other, but teachers will be able to see all the students within their session ID. All the embedded tools that CAI offers will work in the remote platform, with the exception of print on demand and online braille embossing. And this is because they're physical materials, so you kind of need to be in a room or in a building together to be able to provide the materials to the students. Next slide. As Abe said before, we had our remote testing pilot start in November 2020. I believe when we first started, we had 7 to 8 districts, and now we're up to 25 to 30 districts who are participating in this pilot. Up to today, we've had over 4,000 tests submitted using the remote proctoring features, and our goal is to have this available to all teachers for the interim assessments in February of 2021. We do encourage that if you do need to use this remote tool, that students and teachers practice it using the interim assessments before they try it out on the summative assessments. Next slide. We don't really go into too much of the reporting system during these trainings, but we do want to let you know that if you hadn't heard, our centralized reporting system got a new name. It used to be known as Airways. So Airways up to this year was a reporting system for interim assessments. It has now been renamed to Centralized Reporting System, CRS. And the other major update to the system is that it will now house both the interim and summative assessment results. So the old system, the online reporting system, is no longer available. It has been decommissioned. All the results for all summative and interim assessments will be in the CRS system. And any previous data, summative data that we had in ORS for SMART Balance, NGSS, CTA, and CTOS have now been migrated over to CRS. Next slide. You've seen the slide before, but I just want to mention it again. All resources that we have will be posted on the portal, including links to all the systems that you need to have access to in order to be able to have a successful administration. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact the help desk. If you want to talk to someone directly at CAI, Amber, myself, or Marie, you can contact the help desk and just say, I'd like to speak to Jen. Next slide. Okay, and I'll pass it back to Abe.
Thanks, Jen. So we have a little time now for Q&A. Again, we will use the raise hand feature if you want to ask your questions via audio. We certainly love to hear from you. And then we'll also read from the question box. So there's a couple that have come in, so I'll take those now. I don't think I see a hand up, Michelle, but please let me know. But I don't think there's. So first one is more of a, I guess, a statement that wants a affirmation on. So it's fair to say students are required to test on a secure browser using a district computer, or AKA using a district's computer. If not possible, we will give the option to invite that student to take in person, although we will not be penalized for participation this year if it becomes impossible for families to get their child in the building. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, the recommendation is in school, in district for remote learners first, our recommendation. If it becomes too difficult to test at home, again, we're requiring the secure browser for good reason. We're not doing it to make anyone's life difficult. It's because of test security. We've had a lot of concerns expressed to us about test security. One of the ways to protect the validity and reliability of the assessment is to use a secure browser. So yes, in an extreme situation where all those things do not work, again, as I mentioned earlier, health and safety is the most important thing. It doesn't, and that student can't be tested. Assuming the waiver is approved, the districts would not be penalized. Is there an opportunity for schools to pilot remote testing? If so, how do we apply? So we had asked for participants in the stop. We went out with a very small group of participants late in the fall, and then after that, just to kind of get our feet kind of in the game, and then we actually opened it up to districts in December through the Student Assessment News. We did hear from a bunch of districts, and at this point, we're really adding to the pile, or we're going to open it up in February for everybody. So you will have an opportunity to see what the remote proctoring tool looks like in February. Okay, so I don't see any questioned in, and I don't see a raised hand. Oh, question just came in. Will the remote proctoring of IEBs automatically become available in February, or is there something that districts need to do? Yeah, good question. We're gonna turn a switch on and it'll be on. We owe you a communication when it's on. So the communication will also be comprised of some materials to support that. So the ball is in our court on that one. Okay, we'll wait a second here for any questions into the session here, or again, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to use the raise hand feature, you can ask us any of your questions. I'll give it a few seconds here. Yeah, I'll take this one. I'm going to just take them as they come in. Is there an expectation that students being tested remotely will have cameras on for duration of the assessment? Yeah, the remote proctoring tool does have again, camera and video. That is the expectation. Again, in an instance where there might be some barrier, you can certainly use an in-person approach, but that's part of the whole remote proctoring tool, is that video monitoring reception, just like a student would have during the day. Okay, there's a question that came in. I think it's kind of coupled. Yeah,
as far as designated supports and accommodations in Tide, there isn't a deadline. So our recommendation is that prior to testing, that a student's test supports are submitted in Tide. And the system opened up back in November. So some of our districts have already uploaded their accommodations. You can do this again through batch upload or manual entry. So there isn't a deadline as long as the supports are established before the student tests. And we also recommend that these Tide supports be activated before a student begins a practice test. We want our students to be able to access the practice test, signing in with their password and not password, but their student ID and SACID, so that they can have a simulation of the test experience using their accommodations. In regard to the special documents and accommodations, again, we do have a soft deadline of today, but if you need to request specialized accommodations after today, reach out to either me or Janet and we'll work with you on that. If you have any other questions about accommodation deadlines, please reach out and I'd be happy to answer your question.
Thank you, Dee. In the meantime, another question came in regarding, I think, testing in general, sort of more global question. So has any consideration been given to moving tests to next fall? I'm assuming the question is you're gesturing towards the summative assessments. I mean, we have, this year it seems like anything is on the table to make it through this. And at this point, our plan is the spring administration. In terms of the bigger picture, I encourage you, as I mentioned earlier, to provide feedback in our public comment to our waiver. Again, if you go to CSDE, the main page, go to performance, go to accountability, and then you'll see an email address that you can send any comments to. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of things. Specifically next fall really hasn't crossed our table, but we'd certainly love to hear from you in the public comment. Thank you for the question. Are there concerns about locking Chrome updates? If districts allow updates, do you expect a problem with testing? Jen, can I lean on you for this one?
So we do encourage districts to lock down their devices before testing. Chrome tends to, or Google tends to send or push out an updated version of Chrome every 6 weeks. And we do our best to test it and, make sure that we fix all bugs before, we officially support it. So, but we have seen it where we've had to skip a version or something, or there's been some fatal bug that we're working with Google to try to resolve. So in order not to have any of those situations occur during testing, we do recommend that it is locked down before testing begins. I know there is a recommendation not to support Chrome 85. I'm not sure what the reason is. I know that CAI does support it, so there might be other issues with Chrome 85 that does not affect CAI's testing, but may affect other things that you're doing. But we also do support 86. So if you're on 85, you don't like it, you can certainly roll up to 86.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, I mean, the concern, there's another chat that came in regarding that update. If you have questions, I think touching base with the help desk 844-202-7583 in terms of that. Okay, this one was asked. Okay, so we'll give it another 30 seconds. Again, we welcome any questions to come in, or you can raise hand and ask the question audio too. Okay, I think we'll call it a webinar. Thank you for taking the time to attend today. We appreciate your time. Stay safe. Thank you to also my colleagues at CSDE, CAI, Michelle for handling the webinar. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.